Hi everyone, hope you're all doing good. Okay, so here we are with a brand new edition of the Tapology Lucky Bastard game, the 38th edition of the Tapology Lucky Bastard game to be precise. In the last round, or in the last game, Shat beat, I think it was four other people don't quote me on that, but to win the last game. But so yeah, Shat is our new champion, and we move on to this new game because of that. The wheel was defeated. Let's see if we can defeat it again. It means that we now have 42 people, or teams of people anyway, 42 entrants. There are three alliances this time competing. So let's just remind ourselves who they are. They are Andrew Loves Christ, who is a debutant. So welcome to the game. Best of luck to you, and hope you enjoy your experience. A laugh my ass off a Nazy or Lamo Nazy or A. I'll just call him A from here on in, as I usually do. Baron von Rattus, Bellatrix, Boom Shakalaka, Calfoth, Canhaga Ruiz, C. Collins 44, Cheeseball, Chimpsmack, D1, D4, K10, Damien Handel 420, Dr. Maxis 2, El Guapo, Foghorn Sam, Geneva 65, Grahaman, Great, It's Your Boy SB, Jack Soto, Jordan and Pippin, the first of our three alliances. That's QQQ, and Spockling's Alliance, named after the basketball greats Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, of course. Which, to be fair, that was news to me only a few weeks ago. JP the Champ 27, KK Kombu, Knife Rusty, Cushy Cake, Love Song, Mule Floyd, Piggy Bank, Rigno, our reigning defending Tapology Lucky Bastard Game champion Shat, who won his third Tapology Lucky Bastard Game title in the last game. So let's see if he can defend his title in this one. Best of luck to him for that. Sion 6, me, Steve Terry, the Dirty UFC Man, the Matchmaker, the MMA Historian, Tosh, Trail, Trig, Trostradamus making a return. This is the third time the Alliance has regrouped, reformed. They have dissolved twice. They're back for a third time. So, best of luck to you two. Always great to see you two back again. Of course, Troz and Costradamus. But let's see, maybe third time lucky for your alliance because historically speaking, Trostradamus hasn't been a very successful entrant in this game. So maybe it's third time lucky. Maybe the reboot again is what we needed. And speaking of alliances, Uber Industry, our longest running alliance at this point, but the German alliance between Ubermatch and Schwer Industry. So best of luck to you, Sue, as always. Vazk88, and finally, Excon Chris. So, they are our 42 entrances for the Tapology Lucky Bastard game. And for this edition, we start by sheer coincidence with the UFC, technically it's called UFC Freedom 250. It's been commonly called the White House cards. I prefer to call it the Donald Trump's birthday present cards because, quite frankly, even though this is billed as being a celebration of 250 years of American independence from the British, it just so happens to fall on Donald Trump's birthday, Sunday, the 14th of June. And of course, if this were a true celebration of American independence, you would expect it to be held on the 4th of July, the date the United States actually declared independence, or at the very least, the closest Saturday to it. But that's not the case. This is happening on Donald Trump's front garden, quite frankly, on the south lawn of the White House, as it says on the site here, and on his birthday, no less. And he's had quite a lot of say in this card as to which fighters have gone on it, from what I've heard. I know uh, Dana White pretty much admitted that the only reason Derek Lewis is on this card is because of Donald Trump's request. I'll cover that in more detail when his fight inevitably comes up in this draw. But anyway, this is really, it's just a glorified birthday present for Donald Trump rather than um, an actual celebration of American independence. And if I was American, I would feel extremely pissed off by that, as it should be a celebration of the nation rather than one individual. And I'd be extremely pissed off that it is being held on the birthday of your president rather than the actual date of your country's independence. That would be a bit like if, for whatever reason, the UFC wanted to make a card special, especially for the British audience, which would never happen because the UFC doesn't care about its British audience. As noted, that time it held an event in Manchester, headlined by Leon Edwards. That ended at about 7 in the morning. That went on all through our night time. So but anyway, if he were to host a British event, that would be a bit like saying instead of picking a event that's historically significant of the many events that are historically significant to the United Kingdom, having it on Keir Starmer's birthday, whenever that is. That's sort of the level of suppose perceived disrespect I'd expect I see this to be. So I'm surprised there's not a little bit more uproar from actual patriotic Americans who are thinking, hang on, this is meant to be a 4th of July proper 250th anniversary of the fuck yous to the Brits rather than a celebration of one individual. It should be a celebration of American culture rather than just one individual president. But anywho, enough politics. Let's get on with the fights. Normally at this stage, I would do an introduction of the main event of what I think is going to happen, but it's worth noting there are only 7 fights on this card. Which, to be honest, if the UFC were giving me a card for my birthday present, I'd want a lot more than 7 fights on it. I'd want at least 12. I'm surprised it's only 7. But anyway, for the purposes of this game, because this happens to fall on the first round where we've got the most number of people in it, that is 14 fighters divided between uh, 42 entrants. So we can basically expect on average about 3 or 4 people per fighter if it was all divided down equally thereabouts. But obviously, it won't work out that neatly, or probably won't work out that neatly. But if it does, then well, that's well. Basically, what I'm saying is every single fighter's I'm expecting is going to have at least 2 people on it. So I mean, it could be by sheer coincidence all 42 of you end up on the same fighter, but I don't think that's going to happen somehow. But anyway, because I'm inevitably going to be covering all the fights in this at some point, most likely several times actually, this obviously has a lot of interesting implications for the game. Firstly, for the video, because it means that I'm going to be going over the same fights a lot, which might mean actually having a shorter first round video than normal, because I'm going to run out of things to talk about. Once you've had the same fighter come up for the 5th time, what's the point in repeating the stuff I've said for the last 4 times? So my analysis might be a little bit lighter as a result of that. And obviously, the implications for the game is, of course, that with more people all doubled up and lumped on the same fighters, we could potentially have a very high elimination rate or a very low elimination rate, depending. You'd still expect it to be somewhat 50-50, but if more of you seem to end up on fighters that don't have as much of a chance, which there seems to be quite a few. There's quite a few one-sided fights in this, in my opinion. And but yeah, it's going to be very interesting for the game. This is easily going to be the most chaotic round in the history of the Tapology Lucky Bastard game, and that's something I don't think will ever be beaten. And I don't even mean that as hyperbole. Like, when was the last time there was a seven fight MMA cards, UFC cards? I can't remember. And then have it fall on the first round by sheer coincidence. Yeah, that's. I don't think this is going to be the sort of chaos. This is going to be the least number of fighters versus the maximum number of people we're ever likely to have in this game's history. So, um, sit back, relax, and buckle up for what might be pure, absolute, unbridled mayhem. That's just the way we like it on the game. Anyway, let's get on with it. So, just make sure we're all on the right screens. First up is Andrew Loves Christ, our debutant. Um, It's unusual because normally we start with A, like Microsoft and AZ, because we just go through it alphabetically. Normally, it's A's the one that's alphabetical order, but this time our debutant Andrew Loves Christ goes first. So best of luck to you, and let's see who your first ever fighter is in the Tapology Lucky Bastard game. And that could have been better, let's be honest. Michael Chandler for Andrew Loves Christ. So that is Michael Chandler is, of course, fighting Mauricio Ruffy and is a very large underdog for that fight, in my opinion. Michael Chandler is look, he's a legend of MMA. There's no question about that. Uh, it's also no question that he had his best years in Bellator, came to the UFC a good 5 years ago now, or thereabouts, and even that was past his prime when he came to the UFC. He was right on the last few years of his prime when he entered the UFC. Um, but as it stands, he is currently riding a three fights losing streak, consisting of knockout loss to Paddy Plimblett last time, um, unanimous decision against Charles Oliveira, and submission loss to uh, Dustin Poirier, which, to be fair, they're all high level fighters. They're all right there at the top end of lightweight, which remains a stacked division even today. But it should be noted those losses are all over the past 2 or 3 years. They're not all yesterday. In fact, before those three fights was his last previous win, and that was against Tony Ferguson, and that was 4 years ago. And that stunned me when I read that fact earlier because I could not believe that that knockout front kick of Tony Ferguson was 4 years ago. That's where have those years gone? But and think that's the last time Chandler won in the UFC. Yeah, this is going to be. I think Mauricio Ruffy, someone with his power, who's a good 10 years or 10 or 11 years younger. Um, yeah, this is going to be a bloodbath in my opinion. I think I'm expecting a first round knockout for Ruffy. I won't go into too much detail on Ruffy straight away now because obviously it's inevitable somebody else will get drawn with him later. So I'll try not to ramble too much about him right now. I'll wait until he inevitably gets drawn later in the draw. But this isn't a great pick for Andrew Loves Christ, if we're being 100% honest. So the wheel obviously didn't take kindly to you entering the game for the first time. Okay, so we move on to A, Laugh My Ass Off and Nazy. Let's see who A is going to be drawn with. And he gets Justin Gaethje, one of the main eventers. The Justin I can never know how to spell this guy's name. Gaethje. You know, I'm going to copy and paste that name right now so that if it does come up again, I can just click paste. That'd be much easier. Yeah, I'll save it into my dictionary as well, actually. Anyway, A laugh myself and Azy with Justin Gaethje, who's obviously in the main event against Ilya Tapuria. And again, I'll try not to talk too much about Tapuria right now, but because again, it's inevitable someone will get drawn with him. But I'm expecting Tapuria to win by first round knockout here. And Justin Gaethje, in many ways, respects, I suppose, is not quite as extreme as Chandler, but in the same kind of boat as Chandler, in the sense that he's a top lightweight, still is, still is a top lightweight. Still, he's past his prime, but he's not on the downturn just yet. I wouldn't say. Obviously, coming off the back of that absolute war against Paddy Pimblett, that was a brilliant win. So he still shows that he belongs at the top end of the lightweight division. Still deserves to be challenging for the title. Even at the age of 37, he's still proving competitive in one of the most stacked divisions. So it's a fight that does make a lot of sense. I've seen it criticised a bit online, but um, if Arman Tsarsukian isn't going to be fighting anytime soon in the UFC, well, then why not have Topuria versus Gaethje? As for his chances in this one, really, let's be honest, Gaethje is if he's going to win, it would be by knockout or maybe a decision. But he's always been very reliant on his striking, and unfortunately for him, that is the department where Topuria thrives in. Topuria will love a striking match against Gaethje, and if that happens, Topuria wins by knockout fairly early, just the same way it's ended with pretty much every other high level fighter Topuria has faced. Um, Gaethje, of course, far more experienced, more fights under his belt, more time and experience under his belt, but so maybe he can try and drag it out for a decision. Maybe he can try and win by decision. In fact, he's never actually lost by decision. Funnily enough, of all the fights he's been in, he's never lost a judge's decision, which technically is also true of Ilia Topuria, given he's undefeated. But I feel like that stat holds a little bit more weight when applied to Gaethje's career. But I don't think it's getting that far. I think Topuria wins this by first round knockout. So I think A's going to need a fair bit of luck here. Okay, so we move on now to Baron von Rattus. Let's see who Baron von Rattus is going to be paired with. And he also gets Justin Gaethje. So that's straight away. We've already got a double up there. Baron von Rattus, Justin Gaethje. And that's where my copy and paste comes in handy there. Because how do you, in terms of names, how do you even end up with a name like Gaethje? Like, how many families and cultures have to mix to end up with that alignment of letters? But anyway, again, there's not really a lot I can add to it. We all know that, as I've been saying, with Gaethje knockout artist, if he is going to win, um, it'll be by knockout, which is why when Max Holloway did that, so in the last 10 seconds of their classic fight at UFC 300, when he pointed to the center when he was already winning and said, "Oh yeah, let's just swing wildly." That was it paid off for Holloway, but that was such a dangerous thing to do against Gaethje because Gaethje wasn't going to win that fight, and that basically threw him a lifeline, a chance like 10 seconds to find that knockout shot, just swinging wildly. And that would be where if Gaethje was going to win, that would be how he'd get the win. Obviously, it didn't end up that way. It ended up the opposite with Holloway knocking him out. But uh, and it must be said, Gaethje has been in my opinion anyway, noticeably slower since that knockout loss, which is understandable. Um, Especially combined with his age, but still, it's that's what I mean about his knockout power. Though it's still dangerous, but can he find that shot against Topuria? I don't think so, because one underrated aspect of Topuria's game is just how good his boxing defense is. Obviously, when you talk about Tapuria, most of the conversation is about his brilliant offense and his and how he times his shots well, and obviously his power he's got behind those shots. But there was a good video I saw online a while back. Well, I say well, it was probably about a month or two ago. It was of Alexander Volkanovski breaking down his fights, particularly his second fight. Um, no, not second fight. No, I'm getting much of Islam there. But his last fight, rather, where he lost by knockout to Poirier, and basically explaining the different level changes, the stance changes that Poirier used, which threw him off. And it was quite an insightful video. Was highlights just how good Tapouria's defense is, how good his cage IQ is as well. Is that something Justin Gaethje can overcome? I don't think so, to be honest. He's got the experience that it won't be anything he hasn't already seen before, but given the age difference and where they are in their careers, Topuria is just going to be so much younger and faster. That's going to be very hard for Gaethje to deal with. Um, but yeah, as I said to like Miles Sophonazy, I think Baron Van Rattus is going to need a fair bit of luck here as well. Okay, so next is Bellatrix. Let's see who Bellatrix gets paired with by the wheel. Let's see. Maybe actually have someone who can win a fight, or is likely, in my opinion, to win a fight. And the first non-American of the card, Ayman Zahabi for Bellatrix. Double check the spelling on that one too, actually. A-I-E-Man Zahabi. Oh, add his name to the dictionary as well. Why not? He deserves it. But yeah, obviously the first three are Americans, which you'd expect, given it's most of the fighters on this card are Americans. But the Canadian Ayman Zahabi is our first non-American in this UFC USA Freedom Donald Trump's birthday card, whatever you want to call it. Um, I'm not even sure if this counts as a numbered event or not. Off the top of my head, not that it really matters if it does or doesn't. But anyway, back to the fighters. Ayman Zahabi, obviously up against Sean O'Malley, um, in the what I like to call the tertiary main event, which given it was just basically three down from the top, basically, which given there's only seven fights is realistically a mid card fight. Um, Zahabi, obviously in good form at the moment, currently riding a seven fight win streak. Um, his last win was a split decision against Marlon Vera. And it was a fight that, yeah, okay, it was very close, but from what I remember of it, I think Zahabi deserved it, just edged it in my opinion. But the only slight caveat with saying he's on a seven fight win streak is they haven't quite been at the same level of fighters that Sean O'Malley has been fighting. What I mean by that is his wins before that. Jose Aldo, legend of the sport, of course, but obviously well past his prime at this point. Pedro Munoz, again, he's a very good fighter, not quite at the top end of bantamweight. Um, Javid Basharat, again, very solid fighter, not quite title contender. So, in many respects, Zahabi's only just started to really break into the rankings, into the top end of the rankings, be fighting the likes of O'Malley, but potentially other fights against Petty Yan. Um, Davison Figueiredo would be a good fight for him. Might follow. But yeah, that's the only caveat with that. Because in my opinion, Sean O'Malley, even though recently, obviously, he's had a couple of losses to Marav Dvalishvili, um, he's been fighting better quality opponents. Even his last win against Yedong Song, in my opinion, right now, I would say Yedong Song is better than Marlon Vera. I think that's a better win right now. Um, so it's this is one of the closer fights on the card, but I still fancy O'Malley to win this. Again, I'll go into a little bit more detail about O'Malley when somebody inevitably gets drawn with him, but O'Malley by decision is my prediction for this one. So probably the best chance so far that's been drawn, but I think Bellatrix will still need a bit of luck. And I think so far the wheel's making his feelings on the White House card very clear, or at least his opinion on you lot very clear. Anyway, however you want to interpret it. Anyway, next, Boom Shakalaka. Always a fun name to pronounce. Let's see what the wheel's got in store for Boom Shakalaka. There's Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel for Boom Shakalaka. And obviously Bo Nickel, this is the first fighter I'd say is a favourite to come out. Um, I've got him to win by first round knockout against Carl Dorcas. And um, to be fair, Carl Dorcas, in my opinion, could be a little bit of a banana skin. I'll come on to that a little bit later when someone inevitably gets paired with him. I'll be very surprised if there's a fighter that doesn't come out at some point during this draw. It could happen, but I'll be very surprised if that were the case. But anyway, so Bo Nickel, of course, he's bounced back last time, a win against Rodolfo Vieira, and knockout, well, head kick, surprisingly. Didn't know he had that in him. But obviously, that was his bounce back fight after his TKO loss against Rene de Ridder. That absolutely disgusting knee to the body through there. But I must say, Bo Nickel, to his credit, has bounced back from his first professional loss very well. And so yeah, you can't really have any doubts about um his mentality, how he's going to fare in this fight. Obviously, he's still relatively inexperienced in terms of MMA. Still 8-1 in his career, 5-1 in the UFC. Um, so yeah, 8-1 MMA, 5-1 in the UFC, and so whereas compared to Carl Dorcas' record is 17-4 in MMA and 4 wins, 4 losses, and one no contest, of course, for good measure in the UFC. And yeah, so Bo Nickel, of course, despite the inexperience in MMA, does have a ton of experience in wrestling. I'm not overly familiar with wrestling in America because I understand he was a massive star in college wrestling. And this is something I've never understood about American culture. Oh, excuse me, I know, and I've got the fucking hiccups now. This is going to be a long video, isn't it? Um, Let me have a little sip of my whiskey. Hang on. Anyway, so this is one thing I've never understood about American culture is Bo Nickel, massive high school wrestler, college wrestler. This made him a household name, and I don't get that. I've never understood why high school sports and college sports in the United States is such a big deal. I mean, I played football, what you guys would call soccer, a couple of times from my high school team. From what I remember, I think there might have been a grand total of about five parents watching us. I don't think anybody else came. We certainly didn't have a great big stadium. We didn't have any seats watching. It was just in a field. And if you could be bothered to stand around in the rain, watch it, then good luck for you. But it doesn't really have appeal. Even most people at school wouldn't particularly care what the result was. And that's the sort of level I feel like high school and college sports should be at. So when I see, particularly with America, the World Cup is being held there this year, and some of the stadiums, I believe, are actually college stadiums potentially. I know there's a lot of NFL stadiums being used, but I think some of them are just high school and college stadiums, and which is baffling. The fact you even have a stadium at all, let alone a massive one for high school and college sports, doesn't. I've just never understood that aspect. Like, how do so many people get behind a high school team or a high school athlete? I don't get it. Um, so the fact that Bo Nickel has become a huge star off the back of high school and and college wrestling, made himself a household name in the American combat sports world. I do not understand that. Um, but I am led to believe that that in terms of wrestling, that's about the highest level, perhaps barring the Olympics, you can reach. Um, so he's no joke when it comes to wrestling. And that has been a large part of his MMA game. Um, and yeah, to be honest, that's what I'm expecting him to utilise against Kyle Dorcas, if I'm being honest. Um, I can see it being a sort of a more of a technical knockout where it takes Dorcas to the ground and finishes by ground and pound would be my precise prediction. But yeah, I think Bo Nickel's a good pick here anyway. Went on a bit of a rant there, but Boom, Boom Shakalaka with Bo Nickel. That's a good pick. I think Boom Shakalaka should be through to the second round. Okay, we move on to Calfoth. Calfoth now, if I can fucking speak through the hiccups, which are that's Calfoth next for the wheel. Sean O'Malley for Calfoth. Sean O'Malley. Um, so another favourite, another fighter I'm expecting to win. So that's a good pick there for Calfoth. As I mentioned, he's obviously up against Bellatrix and Eamon Zahabi. Um, there will be more added to that fight, no doubt. And oh, mm, excuse me. Right. So as I mentioned, O'Malley's coming off the back of that win against Yadong Song last time out, and unanimous decision in that one. It was a fairly clear win for him. It's uh, can't really argue with the result. And obviously before that, he had his couple of losses to Marab Divalishvili, although that's no shame in that, given you can make the arguments that Marab Divalishvili is one of the best bantamweights we've ever seen in the sport. So there's no shame at all in losing in those losses. Um, it's clear the UFC want him to have the belt again. Very marketable star. Um, so this is, in my opinion, being such a high profile card, it's get a win on such a high profile stage. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins this and then he's next in line for the bantamweight title shot. That's what I'm expect. That's what I'm expecting the UFC trying to set him up for here. But I'm going to go for him by decision, and my reasoning for that being is a Harvey. Like I say he's on that win streak, and so he's got the momentum behind him. And yeah, it's a tough fighter. He's going to be tough to finish, and I don't think he's going to be caught out by any of O'Malley's fancy uh, flared striking at all. To be honest, I think he's going to be very wary of that, very mindful of that, especially given what's at stake in the fight. Because alternatively, a win for Zahabi by any method, even if it's a boring decision win, where he just completely smothers O'Malley, that's going to raise his profile massively. So I wouldn't expect him to do any to fall for any sort of bait that O'Malley tempts him with. Um, but still, I reckon O'Malley's over 3 rounds going to do the better body of work. He's going to get the unanimous decision win here. Okay. So next is Canhego Ruiz. Canhego Ruiz about to find out his fate from the wheel. Mauricio Ruffy. Mauricio Ruffy there for Canhego Ruiz. CEO Ruffy. And just check I'm on the right page. Yeah. And as I mentioned, I'm expecting to be a heavy favourite against Michael Chandler. Um, I spoke about Chandler earlier, so on to Ruffy. Um, far less experience in his career, 13-2 in his MMA career, against the far more experienced 23-10 of Michael Chandler. But what he's telling us their respective UFC records. Ruffy 4-1 in the UFC, Chandler 2-5, 2-5. Excuse me. I'm trying to sort of time my speaking between the hiccups here. um, but, um, but yeah. Anyway, uh, oh, excuse me. It's obviously those stats are a little misleading because obviously Chandler's prime, as I mentioned, was in Bellator, which he amassed an incredible 18-5 record and was obviously a former champion over there. Uh, but Ruffy has just been pure knockout artist since coming onto the scene in the UFC. He obviously had that knockout win against Rafael Fiziev last time out. Um, he, his only loss in the promotion, submission loss to Benoit Saint Denis, but Saint Denis has already proven to be a fairly high level fighter in the UFC. So again, not really much shame in that. Um, of course, it's like I say, pure knockout artist, and given how far past his prime I perceive Chandler to be, that's not going to end well for him. I would expect Ruffy uh, to win by first round knockout, especially given most of his previous knockouts have come in the first round. And Chandler has been knocked out before. He has slowed down as his career's progressed naturally. This is going to be it's going to be a tough night for Chandler, and it's I'm fully expecting Mauricio Ruffy to get the knockout win here, which is great news for Canhego Ruiz because obviously that's I would say is a very good chance of getting through to the second round. Okay, next to learn their fate is C Collins 44. Let's see who C Collins 44 is paired with. And C Collins 44 also gets Bo Nickel. So that is Bo Nickel there for C Collins 44. And as I mentioned, still fairly inexperienced in terms of MMA, but he's got a lot of wrestling experience behind him. Been wrestling probably since he could walk, or at least since he could crawl. Probably. It's So he's got plenty of combat sports experience. Um, but as I mentioned, still a little bit green in terms of his MMA career. Um, I suppose in many respects, Rene de Ridder took advantage of that um, in his win against Bo Nickel, but he's bounced back well. Nickel, he's bounced back, and uh, obviously he's going to have his confidence back, and that's going to make him very dangerous. And and even though I've been saying how inexperienced he is, he's still got some very good wins in that time. He's full and beaten Paul Craig by unanimous decision. He's obviously got that submission win over Cody Brundish as well. So it's a very decent record. This is most people that are less than 10 fights in their career, to their credit, do not have those names on their records. So the fact that Bo Nickel does shows, firstly, how much he's been pushed by the UFC, and of course, how well, for the most part, he's been handling the challenges that the UFC have been giving him. So he's legit. He is a genuine threat to the middleweight division. And obviously, I can think with more experience, specifically in MMA, particularly as his striking evolves, um, even more than it has, he's going to be a very dangerous fighter in the future. Kyle Dorcas, obviously, I'm still expecting him to get knocked out in the first, but I am expecting him to put up a decent fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Dorcas could manage to escape the first round here. Um, Obviously, Bo Nickel, I think it's just going to be little bit too overpowering for him though. But see, Colin 44 won't mind that. It was a very good pick for him. Okay, Cheeseball next to Face the Wheel. Let's see who Cheeseball is going to be rooting for tomorrow night. Or not tomorrow night, it's actually on Sunday. But Cheeseball gets Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira there for Cheeseball, Charmer himself. Pereira for Cheeseball. Um, in the co-main event here, the interim heavyweight title fight against Cyril Gahn. And probably of all the fighters on the card, um, Alex Pereira is probably the one I want to win the most, just because I really have no respect for Cyril Gahn at all. I'll get onto that when again Cyril Gahn inevitably gets drawn, but Cyril Gahn's last fight, of course, that no contest against Tom Aspinall, where he just couldn't keep his fingers to his own self, and caused a lot of damage to Tom's eye. So that's why we're even having this interim title, and I don't think he should be rewarded with a interim title shot on the back of that. Um, but anyway, on to Pereira. This is quite an intriguing one because this is his heavyweight debut, and even though obviously the interim title isn't a full title, and I don't consider it as such, if he does win, he would have held a belt of some description in all three weight classes. Um, that would mean the first ever three weight champion in the UFC, I suppose, from that technical standpoint. Obviously, I wouldn't consider it to be such until you, you got the proper title, the off of Aspinall. But obviously, he was the genuine champion at middleweight and light heavy. And if wins this sets him up for a chance at the legitimate belt for heavyweight against Tom Aspinall whenever Aspinall is ready to come back or vacates the belt due to injury, depending what happens first. But obviously Pereira, he his last fight, he became the light heavyweight champion against Magomed Ankalaev. In doing so, he avenged his previous loss against him. Uh, he knocked out Ankalaev last time, but before that, obviously lost the unanimous decision to Ankalaev. Um, so yeah, that's how he got the his second belt in the promotion. Um, Pure knockout artist. That's basically goes without saying, doesn't it? Particularly his left hook. Never actually won a fight by submission, which is quite an interesting stat that I found when researching this. Um, so that's definitely the weakest aspect of his game, and Silgan, in that sense, is more well-rounded in that department. But I'm still expecting Pereira to win by knockout, probably a later knockout. I'm going to win by fourth round knockouts here. Um, and that's certainly what I'm hoping happens as well. Hoping that Pereira gets a win. In a way, I'm almost surprised that the UFC haven't put a British fighter on this card. I'd have thought that even if it's just a complete setup, you'd have thought symbolically you'd want to start the card with a massive American favourite against a British fighter that the British fighter doesn't have a chance against, just for the sake of symbolicness. But on one hand, I'm glad they didn't do that. On the other hand, it would have been nice to have a British guy to root for, but I suppose Pereira's about as close as we're going to get, or at least I'm going to get. So he's the one I want to win the most of all the fighters on the card. So, and I think he will. I think should get through to the second round here. Okay, Chimp Smack is next to discover who he's going to be cheering for. Let's see who Chimp Smack is matched with. Josh Hokett. Josh Hokett there for Chimp Smack. And he's someone that's recently burst onto the scene, isn't it? He's come out of nowhere seemingly, and here he is on one of the highest profile cards we got of the year or for a long time, anyway. Obviously up against Derek Lewis and Hokett's last fight, only about a month ago, or maybe a month or two ago, maybe 6 weeks or thereabouts. Um, and that was obviously his unanimous decision win against Curtis Blades. So that's a very good win in the heavyweight division. And went the distance in that one as well. So that was a hell of a war, and it's a very quick turnaround considering the fight. So fair play to him for taking this opportunity. I don't blame him either, given he's still very early in his career as well. He's 9-0, 3-0 in the UFC, still undefeated, and strike while the iron's hot, I guess, and get your name out there. That's the way to make money in this game. Um, and he's up against Derek Lewis, who, if I'm being honest, as much as I love Derek Lewis, and I would love to see him get an upset win here, if you can beat Curtis Blades, you can beat Derek Lewis. And quite frankly, I'm expecting Josh Hokett to win by first round knockout against Derek Lewis because the truth be told, as entertaining as Lewis is, he is very much a kill or be killed fighter. And quite a lot of the time it's be killed and he does get knocked out early on. And there have been a few times where people have questioned his heart, where maybe if a fight's not been going his way straight away, sort of given up on it and sort of got himself out of there early. I don't fully subscribe to that, but um, I think if anything, it's just more to do with his gas tank, really. But he can go the distance, but he never looks too comfortable going the distance. Um, but yeah, Josh Hokett should get a win here. Maybe, given the sheer golfing difference in experience in terms of the fights. As I mentioned, Hokett 9-0, Derek Lewis 29-13. So a whole chasm of experience difference between the two here. And one thing is interesting as well. to note that Derek Lewis is the oldest fighter on the card, 41 years, 4 months old, against Josh Hokett, who's the youngest fighter on this card, at 28 years, 7 months. Um, so it's the oldest versus the youngest. Very much, I suppose, in some respects, a potential passing of the torch um, moment, so to speak, an old veteran up against a young lion. Um, but who knows? Maybe uh, Lewis has some tricks up his sleeve. Maybe he can uh, produce a shock win. Uh, that's maybe it would be a lucky shot though. That's he's got a puncher's chance. He is the epitome of a fighter having a puncher's chance against anyone. But Hokit should make fairly easy work of this as long as he doesn't do anything stupid. So Chimps Mac, I think should be fairly happy with this pick. Okay, next is D1 D4 K10. You can probably get that username on a number plate. But D1 D4 K10 is next to see who he's going to be rooting for. And he gets Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez for D1 D4 K10. And another fighter the UFC have been trying to push quite heavily. Uh, already had two title fights against Volkanovski. Lost both of them, of course, because the golfing experience between Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez is. In fact, it might even have been. How many times have they fought now? It's twice at least, maybe even three times already. I can't. I'm not even 100% sure. It feels like they fight each other every other week. But the golfing experience between them is massive. Um, but Lopez, to his credit, has been beating everybody not named Volkanovski at featherweights. Um, and that's about all you can really ask for a sort of a title challenger. Again, relatively quick turnaround for him. His last fight was 4 months ago. That obviously that unanimous decision against Volkanovski lost, and in between those two fights, Volkanovski knocks out Gene Silva, a very legit fighter. That was I suppose in some ways this sets him up well for this fight here against Steve Garcia because Gene Silva, pure knockout artist. Steve Garcia, you can very much say the same about him as well. Knockout threat, and Lopez handled the knockout threat of uh, Silva, so I'm sure Lopez will be able to handle Garcia. Um, that's my logic for this, and having said that, I'm expecting a second round submission for Lopez. I think Garcia is going to come out swinging early. I think Lopez going to bide his time. He's going to not risk engaging too much. I wouldn't have thought with Lopez, or if he does, it'd be mostly to sort of block, sort of wear out Lopez, Garcia's output. But I suppose the main best to try and wear out Garcia and then potentially take control in the second round. That's my prediction for that one. Um, that's how I'd expect it to go. You could probably say he could knock out Garcia. That's not unreasonable either. I just think that it'd be easier to submit Garcia given how dangerous a striker Garcia is. If you can take him down and submit him and avoid a fist fight in doing so, yeah, why not? That makes perfect sense to try and do that. But Lopez, very well rounded fighter, a very dangerous young fighter. We'll hear a lot more of in the future. And I think we're going to be hearing a lot about him come Sunday night. Uh, and D1, D4, K10, I think can be quite happy with that. Pretty safe route to the second round for him. Damien Handel for 20 is next to see who the wheels got in store for him. Let's see, Damien Handel. And Josh Hokett for Damien Handel there. Ooh, so as I just uh, get on the right page, um, HOKIT. Um, yeah, as I mentioned, he's up against Derek Lewis and uh, in the form of his life at the moment. Obviously, with that not win against Curtis Blades only about 6 weeks ago, and against Derek Lewis, you should expect him to get a knockout win. Derek Lewis is, in my opinion, a much tougher opponent than Blades and a much more hittable opponent too. It must be said, Lewis is a bit more chinny uh, than Curtis Blades is. So I'm expecting this one to be a fairly quick fight. And obviously, I mentioned I will go over Lewis in more detail when somebody inevitably gets drawn with him. But Hokit, of course, yeah, I'm expecting his good run of form to continue here uh, in that fight. Okay, so Dr. Maxis 2. Let's see. See if he gets a different fighter, one I've not already talked about. Because it's starting to get to the stage already where I'm running out of things to talk about, the ones that have already come up. It's Alex Pereira there for Dr. Maxis 2. So Alex Pereira. Uh, Obviously I've already spoken about him in some very dangerous knockout artist against Cyril Gahn, and I hope he knocks out Cyril Gahn. And I don't see any reason why not, because he's shown that as well as even though a lot of his fights ended early, he's more than capable of carrying that power at all stages of a fight. His win against Israel Adesanya, that was a knockout in the fifth round. He knocked out Khalil Roundtree in the fourth round. So he's not so unlike some fighters you'd normally describe as being a sort of a knockout artist, he's not one that you'd think is going to gas out after a few rounds. He's always going to be a knockout threat as long as he's standing in front of you. And that's something that's something Cyril Gahn's probably got to. I reckon probably have some trouble dealing with. Be able to handle it for a few rounds, I reckon, but not against not for the full duration of the fight. Um, Obviously, Gahn much more well-rounded overall, much more a better ground game than Pereira. Um, and he'd have to utilize that if he is going to get a win. Um, but will Pereira let him get to that stage? I don't think so, because Pereira's pretty good at keeping his distance, and uh, I say he can be out wrestled. But I just can't see Cyril Gahn doing that, especially since Gahn himself has proven to quite like a standing brawl himself at times. So, as long as he doesn't blind Pereira, uh, I'm sure that Pereira will get a knockout win later in the fight. So, Dr. Maxis too should should be quite happy with that one. I will say, even though this wheel started off giving some underdogs, it seems to have turned it around a bit here. Started handing out some favourites. El Guapo next to El Guapo next to find out who he'll be fighting or facing or rooting for in the game on Sunday night. And it's Ayman Zahabi there for El Guapo. So Ayman Zahabi, um, as I mentioned, uh, against Sean O'Malley, and I find I'm expecting O'Malley to do well and get a decision win, although Zahabi, I'm expecting to put up a good fight. Um, Very much the veteran of this one, age 38 against O'Malley's 31. Even though O'Malley's actually got more experience, more fights in his career than Zahabi. O'Malley 19-3, Zahabi 14-2. Um, but Zahabi, I suppose, in terms of if you're going by age, is the veteran here, even though O'Malley's got the more fights in his career and, in my opinion, better quality of opponents. And that's going to be the main deciding factor here. I think the fighters that O'Malley has fought have just been at a higher level than the likes that Sahabi has been fighting. Um, so I do feel like Sahabi's a little bit out of his depth here in some respects, as opposed to try and make O'Malley look good um, on a big stage in a very high profile fight card. And they would try and use that to justify giving O'Malley yet another title shot. So, especially now Marab isn't the champion anymore. Um, Probably it seems obvious that O'Malley's style just wasn't going to beat Marab. Now that he isn't the champion, maybe the UFC think, oh, okay, we can got a much better chance of wrapping the belt around O'Malley's waist. And this it looks like they're using Zahabi as a stepping stone to achieve that goal. But I don't see O'Malley finishing Zahabi though. I think Zahabi's going to be too skillful for that. Still a bit too tough for that. So expecting him to make a good fight of it. So Aguapo need a little bit of luck to get through for the game. Hmm. Right, Foghorn Sam next to learn who he'll be matched with. Let's see if Foghorn Sam is paired with. Maybe someone different. Who knows? No, we go with Josh Hokett again. So already we've got quite a few on Josh Hokett. And not really much more I can add to that, other than that he'll be fighting Derek Lewis. And again, it's inevitable someone will get drawn with Lewis, so I'll go over Lewis when his name inevitably comes out of the wheel, no doubt. And but yeah, Hokett, obviously off to a flying start in the UFC. Um, Came over from the LFA, had a fight in Bellator as well, but he's yeah, his rise has been meteoric in the world of MMA so far. Um, at this rate, given how shallow heavyweight is, it won't be too long till we see him challenging for the title. If he carries on at this rate and carries on winning, he'll be fighting for the title at some point in a year or so. That's As for the here and now, Falcon Sam should be quite happy with that one. I can see Poker getting a statement knockout win over Derek Lewis, and that will take Falcon Sam to the second round. Okay, so we move on now to Geneva 65. Let's see who Geneva 65 is going to be matched with. Ilya Taporia. Ilya Taporia there for Geneva 65. New fighter to talk about. Obviously, in the main event against Justin Gaethje. And Taporia is one of the best talents we have seen for a long time in MMA. He's 17-0, still undefeated. 9-0 in the UFC, still quite young, only 29. Um, he doesn't look like losing, to be honest. He's already made himself a two-division champion at featherweight and lightweight. So um, as long as he stays active, this was the mistake Conor McGregor made. McGregor, after becoming lightweight champion, didn't stay active. He went and had that fight with Floyd Mayweather. he took a year off to do all sorts of movies and things like that. And then when he came back, beaten by um, Khabib, and because of that, he never ended up with any defenses of his title. But Topuria, to his credit, in my opinion, has already surpassed McGregor's legacy simply by virtue of the fact that he is at least attempting to defend his lightweight title. Um, so, um, and he's been doing it in just as spectacular a fashion as McGregor was. He's been knocking people out left, right, and centre. He's knocked out some all-time great fighters, Volkanovski, of course, who was still in still to some respects in his prime. He came back and still the heavyweight, not heavyweight, still featherweight champion. I mean, given how big he was during his rugby days, yeah, probably would be heavyweight, but could have been a heavyweight. But it's yeah, got wins over Max Holloway as well, and then moved up to lightweight, got the title from Charles Oliveira. It's a brilliant resume he's got, and I don't think anyone beats him in any weight class. I know there's been a bit of talk about a welterweight super fight against Islam Makhachev. In my opinion, I think Topuria would win that. Um, so how's that fare for this fight? Not very well if you're rooting for Justin Gaethje, because I'm expecting Topuria to win by first round knockout. And if you can just steamroll through the likes of Oliveira, Holloway, Volkanovski, I think someone like Gaethje, who again is elite um, lightweight fighter, but this just shows how good um, Topuria is. That he's already beaten several names at the top end of featherweight and lightweight. He's already beaten some all-time greats while they're not too far removed from their prime. I mean, arguably, with the case of Holloway, still in his prime. Um, but Yeah. So this is probably, in my opinion, probably the best pick you can get because I don't see Gaethje beating Topuria at all. So I don't see anyone beating Topuria at all. So I'd be very, very, very surprised if we didn't see Geneva 65 in the second round here, along with anyone else who may later get drawn with Ilia Topuria. Okay, so next is Grahaman. Let's see who Grahaman is matched with. Yet another fighter for Josh Hokett. Um, yeah, and at this point, we really are running out of things to say about Josh Hokett. Um, so that's all I'm going to say for this one. Really, is that I'm expecting him to win. So for Graham, and this is a good pick. And I'm expecting him a first round knockout against Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis, much more hittable opponent. This would play right in. It's the perfect opponent for Hokett. You could not have picked a better opponent for Hokett. I'm sure if you asked Hokett who he'd like to face at heavyweight, he'd probably have said Lewis. Um, and maybe in Lewis's defense, because he's got far more experience, maybe the um, the sheer state of the occasion might be able to spur him on, given that motivation he needs to cause a massive upset. And suppose strange things would have happened, but I would be very surprised if that's what happens. Um, Common sense tells you Hokett, doesn't it? Let's be honest. And Graham's not going to complain about getting Hokett. I don't think anyone will. But if there is an upset, quite a few people are going out. That's for sure. But we'll move on now to Great, who is no longer on Tapology. He got a 10-year ban because he just couldn't fucking behave himself. But we love him nonetheless, and he was a lifetime pass holder, hence why he's still in the game. Um, and who knows? It'd be quite funny if a user who's banned from Tapology ends up winning the Tapology Lucky Bastard game. That'd be the sort of shithousery and mayhem that this game is has become renowned for. So let's see who Great ends up with. Let's see if we can start a legendary run. And his run's got off to a brilliant start. Iliad Saporia. Um, I always try not to buy into the hype of fighters if I can. But with Saporia, I'm I wouldn't even say it's hype anymore. He's backed it up. He's got brilliant wins that you can point to. Brilliant performances you can point to. He doesn't mess about. It's always gets. He's been fighting as high level opponents as you can ask for, and he's been getting them out of there in the first round. So this is yeah, my only hope really is Tapuria stays active. I know he's had a few personal issues in his life with his divorce and all that. I understand why he's been slightly less active as a result because of dealing with all of that. But without getting into it, I believe that a lot of those issues are now resolved. So hopefully he can sort of put that to one side, focus on his career, and rack up those defenses and really cement himself, not just as a lightweight all-time great, but as an all-time MMA great as well. So, as I mentioned, expect him to get a win, get the knockout, first round knockout against Gaethje, which would be another incredible name on his records. Um, Imagine that. Suppose he does win. That's Gaethje, Holloway, Volkanovski, Oliveira. That is just a who's who of the lightweight and featherweight um, champions and title challengers of this era. But yeah, great. I'll be very, very surprised if he doesn't get through to the second round here. It's your boy SB is next to see who the wheel's going to match him with. So let's see who it's your boy SB is going to be matched with. Yet another fighter for Josh Hokett. Again, not much I can say to that. As Josh Hokett seems to, I've lost count how many are now on Josh Hokett. Um, I'm not going to try and work out as I go along who's matched up with who's been drawn, how many head-to-heads there are. All I know is there's at least five of you now that's on Josh Hokett, and not really much else I can say. But other than I think this is a great pick for anyone else that does get Josh Hokett. Um, yeah, and I say he's got more than his fair share of people riding on his back now, and uh, it'd be funny if there are actually fighters that don't get picked by the wheel. I'm expecting every fighter to have at least one person they're representing, but it could be that Josh Hokett takes everyone with him, or almost everyone. But it's your boy SB with Josh Hokett there. So move on now to Jack Soto. Will he get Josh Hokett or will he get someone else? Let's see who Jack Soto uh, is going to be matched with. Diego Lopez for Jack Soto. Diego Lopez for Jack Soto there. And on the first fight on this card, obviously against Steve Garcia, very dangerous knockout artist, Steve Garcia. So that's a potential banana skin. And as I believe this is also in terms of the betting, this is also the closest fight odd-wise. Uh, in terms of it, with the Lopez as a slight favourite, I think he should be a slightly heavier favourite. I think that he's more well-rounded. He's got much more to his game than than Garcia does. Garcia's got knockout power, and to be fair, he's a decent fighter as well. But this is a huge jump up, in my opinion. Uh, so even though Garcia's on a brilliant seven fight win streak, with six of them being knockouts, his last opponent was David Onama, and it's a hell of a jump. With all due respect to David Onama, it is a hell of a jump to go from David Onama to Diego Lopez. Um, and how well he's going to make that jump, I'm not sure. But Lopez, particularly with his performance against Gene Silver, I think there's a lot of parallels that can be made from that fight in this one. Um, so if he can weather the storm of Silver, I think Lopez can weather the storm of Garcia too. So I think Jack Sotto's got a decent chance of getting through here. Jordan and Pippin are first of the alliances. QQQ and Spotclean as alliance. Um, how appropriate that they're involved in this White House cards. The All Americans on probably the most American event in the UFC's history. Besides maybe the fight for the troops cards they used to hold back in the early 2010s and late 2000s. They were very patriotic, obviously raising money for the armed forces veterans. They should really do more stuff like that. Um, but Jordan and Pippin, let's see who they're going to be matched with. And I'd love the irony if they get a non-American fighter in this. The irony of that would be brilliant. Why have you? Why is this? Pause my screen sharing. I don't want it to do that shit. Right, there we go. So Jordan and Pippin for uh, Jordan and Pippin next up. Let's see who they get matched with. And they don't get an American fighter. They get the Frenchman Cyril Gane. Um, and on top of that, one that I think is going to lose as well. Not even in a fight involving an American. They're up against a Brazilian. Cyril Gane. Cyryl Gane. And uh, yeah, maybe. That might be how he spells Cyril. I don't know. I'm not adding it to my dictionary. He doesn't deserve to be added to my dictionary. Um, as I said, Gane's coming off his no contest against Aspinall, where he caused a lot of damage to Aspinall's eye with that eye poke. How that's stuff shit like that is a no contest rather than not a disqualification, I don't know. Um, if you foul, I mean, I get okay, accidental, sure. I suppose we can buy that maybe, but at the end of the day, it's still a foul and it shouldn't happen. If you're going to disqualify Petr Yan against Aljamain Sterling for that illegal foul, then why aren't you doing it for these things? Like no contest should be for like freak accidents and stuff like that, which can't be helped by not extending your fingers. Like you can avoid poking someone in the eye. So I'm very much of the opinion that if a foul, unless it is obviously it's circumstantial, but unless it's like you throw a kick and then your opponent does some weird jumpy thing and it ends up landing right in his nuts, then and that ends the fight, then I could see something like that being a no contest. But something with like eye pokes, um, yeah, that should just be a disqualification loss if your opponent can't continue. And that will incentivize fighters to keep their fucking fists closed when they're throwing strikes. Um, and I don't buy the whole argument of you're sensing a range. You can sense range with the jab. Boxers do it all the time. Boxers measure range with their jab all the time. You don't need your fingers extended. Your fingertips aren't necessary to establish range. Uh, but anyway, um, it does sort of rub me the wrong way though that it's a case of because obviously Aspinall's still out injured. Obviously, rightly so, there is a heavyweight interim title to keep the division moving. If the champion is injured, let's do the interims so that we can keep the division flowing and we have a contender in place for when or if the champion is able to return or someone to promote if they're unable to return. Uh, so it makes sense that. So I'm not nothing against the having an interim champion. I'm just saying that Cyril Gane shouldn't be in the fights. Alex Pereira versus, I would say, Alexander Volkov, because Gane's last fight before that was a split decision against Volkov, which he won, but I would argue Volkov won that one. I don't think Gane won that fight. The records will show that obviously Gane did win by split decision, but I don't think he did. And there's a lot of people out there that would agree with me on that. So I think if we're having a interim heavyweight title fight, um, we should be having it uh, as Alex Pereira versus Alexander Volkov. And as for Gane, I think let him earn his way back to a title shot. I mean, I know he's 36, but maybe another 10, 15, 20 wins. Maybe Gane can then potentially have another sniff at a title. That'd be how I'd run the promotion anyway. I mean, as much as people shit on Dana White, there's a few fighters that if I don't, well, if I'm the head of the UFC, I'm absolutely screwing certain fighters over myself if I had that kind of power. And Cyril Gane would certainly be one of them. So hopefully he gets knocked the fuck out. And uh, yeah, I wouldn't mind if that's the last we see of Cyril Gane. Um, so I think everyone's rooting for Alex Pereira. I know I certainly am. I'm not even going to try and hide my bias, but bias aside, I still think in terms of pure skill, Pereira still wins by knockouts. Um, so I think Jordan and Pippin might have to come to terms with the fact that a Frenchman is going to knock them out of the competition. That's my assessment of that one. And I know that's not going to go down well with Jordan and Pippin. Or with QQQ, and Spocklin. I'm sure their opinion might change though if Garn does win. But anyway, Cyril Garn for Jordan and Pippin, the Frenchman representing the All American Alliance. You love to see it. Okay, JP the Champ 27 is up next. Before obviously I go through this, I will just shout out to his game he runs on Tapology, the baddest motherfuckers game. Um, Quite simple. You just post your picks, and it's based on you, the more accurate your picks are, the more points you accumulate in the game, and obviously it gets all added into a table, and yeah, whoever has the most points at the end of it wins. Quite simple, really. Um, and you can join in at any time, unlike this game and some other games where you have to be in it from the start. You can just hop in at any time. Obviously, it'd be a disadvantage compared to the other ones that have already made picks in the previous weeks, but it's all a good bit of fun and very simple to enter. You just post your picks in that thread, and he works out the rest. And I've run that game myself for a couple of weeks when Hippie first left or got banned from Tapology. I can't remember now. Uh, and I can tell you, it's bloody hard work. Adding up all those scores, it's not easy, and I wouldn't want to run it myself. So, uh, fair play to him for carrying on for so long for doing that, and long may it continue. Anyway, let's see who in this game. Anyway, JP the Champ 27 gets drawn with, and it's Ayman Zahabi there for JP the Champ 27. There's Ayman Zahabi. So obviously he's come up a few times now, actually, hasn't he, against Sean O'Malley. Um, as I mentioned earlier, I'm expecting him to put up a good fight against O'Malley, but I am ultimately expecting O'Malley to come out on top to win by unanimous decision. Um, yes, as I said, even though he's on that great win streak, that 7-fight win streak, which is probably one of the longest going in certainly at bantamweight at the moment. It's not been some of the names on that have been good, but not quite title contenders. When you got your likes of your Munoz and your Basharats, and they're not really they're good fighters, but they're not really title contenders, to be frank. Or certainly not at the moment anyway. So obviously you have to go through those guys to get to this position to fight the likes of O'Malley, but I just think that O'Malley's recent fights, because he's for the last few years has had no option but to fight the title contenders, fight the top end of the division. Um, if you go by the old adage that's iron sharpens iron, well, Sean O'Malley's going to be sharp as a whetstone. So he's going to be coming into this with a lot of um, momentum behind him, a lot of top level experience, which he's faced the kind of adversity that Zahabi hasn't so far. Um, Zahabi still solid enough to potentially take O'Malley for a good few rounds, maybe even the distance. I'm expecting him to go the distance, but ultimately this will be O'Malley's fights. So I think JP to Champ 27, yeah, probably there are better picks he could have got in hindsight. KK Kombu next to face the wheel. Let's see who the wheel is going to be pairing KK Kombu up with. There's Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel for KK Kombu. And the high school wrestling star and college wrestling star and university wrestling star, wherever he was. Um, one of the best wrestlers in American history, from what I understand. He's apparently an all-time great uh, in the world of college wrestling and high school wrestling, which um, it's confusing for me to try and get my head around. But it's certainly proving to be a great base for MMA because his career's got off to a fantastic start. He's already fought and beaten some big names fairly decisively. And with that first loss against Derrida, he's bounced back fantastically with that knockout against Rodolfo Vieira. Um, so yeah, I'm expecting Bo Nickel to get a fairly decisive win against Carl Dorcas. Um, I say Dorcas, to be fair, he's more of a submission threat himself, which in many ways I suppose similar to Rodolfo Vieira, who Nickel fought in his last fight and knocked him out. So I think this is going to be a fairly similar fight to Bo Nickel's last one there. And I'm sure KK Kombu will be hoping it is because that bode very well for him if it is. It'll be straight through to the second round. Okay, Knife Rusty is next. Let's see who Knife Rusty is going to be given by the wheel. That's Justin Gaethje for Knife Rusty. So obviously in the main event against Ilia Topuria. Um, as I've mentioned, I'm expecting Topuria to win that one quite comfortably by first round knockout, just given the scale of the other fighters he's beaten and how comfortably he's made it look as well. Has been the scary thing about him. Gaethje, like I say, still proven when that win against Paddy Pimblett that he's still right at the top end, and for my money, is the most worthy lightweight title contender. So um, there's no. I'm not saying this is a this fight isn't in any way unjustified. He deserves another shot at the belt. And yeah, like I say, he's had a few like I say, he's ups and downs in the last couple of years, but he's still um even though he's slowed down a bit since his knockout loss to Holloway, he's still proven it almost evolved, I suppose, to an extent, to a more cautious, but more measured fighter. We saw that obviously going the distance, but Pimbler, even though that was a war, uh, Gaethje, I still felt like he was holding back than compared to the Gaethje pre-Holloway knockout would have. Um, Pazia's fight again, that's another one. I feel like yes, he won by unanimous decision, held back a little bit, got the win, but again, it worked for him. So he's very much sort of adopted a style that's starting to suit the fact that he's obviously naturally slowing down with age. Um, but the trouble is that that's just he's up against a once in a generation talent in Ilia Topuria, and um, as good as good as he looks against Paddy Pimblett and Fiziev, um, they're not even close to Topuria's level. Um, very few fighters are, but um, you just can't compare those fights to Topuria. So I think Knife Rusty gonna need a bit of luck, but who knows? Maybe Gaethje can shock the world and upset Topuria. I know the American crowd would love that, wouldn't they? In the main event, the American beating uh Topuria. Not sure whether what does he represent more? Is it Spain or is it Georgia? Uh, in any case, the home crowd, particularly Donald Trump, would love to see an American win the main event, win the belt right in front of him. So, and I suppose that's got to be a motivation for Gaethje as well. So, I suppose that's maybe one other thing I'm not really taking into account with the analysis here is how much is the occasion going to get to the fighters? Which fighters are going to be spurred on by this occasion more than others? Which fighters might crack a bit under the pressure? We'll see. We'll see come to Sunday night. Okay, Cushy Cake is next to discover his fate. Let's see who the wheel has in store for Cushy Cake. It's Ayman Zahabi again for Cushy Cake, and again uh, a bit like Josh Hokett. There's not really. I'm running out of things to say about him. It's interesting that Will seems to be almost. Uh, I'd say we're probably nearly about 2/3 the way through this, and the Will's very much favoured Zahabi and Hokett. There's still a few that we haven't had drawn yet. Still quite a few we haven't had drawn yet. So uh, off the top of my head, I think um, off the top of my head, I think it's three we haven't had drawn yet. Lewis, Derek Lewis, Kyle Dorcas. I don't think anyone's been with yet, and Steve Garcia. I think everyone else has had at least one on, but yeah. Anyway, Sahabi, as I say, it's gonna be should put up a decent fight against Sean O'Malley, but the experience, the quality of the opponents that O'Malley has been fighting is going to be the deciding factor for me in this one. Um, and of course, O'Malley's had more fights as well. Sahabi, a little bit older as well. Again, not really got that going for him. Um, looking at in terms of all the sort of stats I normally measure fights by, O'Malley wins most of those metrics. Um, most of Zahabi's fights, to be fair, they either when he wins, he usually wins in the first round, either by sub or by knockout, or his fights go the distance. There seems to be no in between with them. So either he wins quickly or he goes the distance and wins on points. And maybe he can drag it out, win on points. But I think O'Malley's going to be if it goes the distance, he'll come out on top on the scorecards. Okay, so it's Love Song is next. Let's see who Love Song is going to be rooting for tomorrow or on Sunday rather. Well, it is tomorrow for me. It's already Saturday. And Love Song also with Cyril Garn. So Cyril Garn there, for Love Song, and obviously up against Alex Pereira. I'm hoping, and I think Pereira will knock out Cyril Garn. Gone for fourth round knockout as I've mentioned, and yeah, for me, as again talking about sort of once in a generation talents like Tapuria, Alex Pereira very much falls into that category. Could have been even greater in MMA if he'd moved over from kickboxing a little bit sooner. No, got the hiccups back again. Fuck me. But that's yeah. If he'd have moved over a bit sooner than when he did, could have even had even longer as career. Because it's strange to think Pereira's still only 13-3 in his MMA career. So all things considered, still fairly inexperienced. Gone 13-2 though, um similar sort of record, and he's 36. Pereira's 38, but at least with Pereira, we know that he's been having hundreds of kickboxing fights or wherever it is before then. What's Gone doing with his time? Probably gaming, wasn't he? He's probably sitting on his ass playing FIFA. That's uh, that's what Gain's been doing with his career. Um, but I think Pereira's gonna knock him out. That's certainly what I'm hoping for, anyway. But Love Song's obviously going to be disagreeing with me respectfully, of course, hoping that Garn gets the win so that he can go through to the second round. Okay, Mule Floyd is next up. I've got to give him a shout out as well because he usually does brilliant breakdowns of all the rounds, working out who's been drawn with who and what the order of the cards, which is always massively appreciated in the Lucky Bastard Game thread because it is it's such a hard game to keep track of at times, especially live when you're going through the card at the moment um, as you're watching it, and it's nice to be able to look back and follow his comments on my phone. And I'll tell you what, he's going to have his work cut out doing this one, hasn't he? so many so many entrants, so few fighters. This is going to be absolute mayhem for him to try and organise if he decides to undertake that monumental task. But always appreciated, and best of luck for you. Let's see if you get a good one in this game. Yep, and the MMA gods have rewarded him with Ilya Taporia. Ilya Taporia there for Mule Floyd. And as I've mentioned several times, several times now, very much considered Tapuria to be an exceptional talent, and I think that even though as good as Gaethje is, Tapuria, the way Tapuria has blasted through Volkanovski, Holloway, Oliveira, it doesn't bode well for Mule Floyd, despite how good form he's been in. and how good a form Gaethje's been in, rather. It's I, there's very few fighters I think will really be able to give him a challenge, and the other thing as well you got to bear in mind is Gaethje loves to fight. I mean, he's a D1 wrestler as well, but he never seems to use the wrestling. He prefers to just stand and bang, and now play right into Taporia's arms. And to put it bluntly, if he decides to try and stand and bang with Ilya Taporia, he's going to get knocked out. There's no two ways about it. He doesn't win a stand up fight against Taporia. He's going to need to go in for a very grappling heavy style against Tapuria if he's to have any chance. But then again, Tapuria has shown that he's um, more than comfortable on the ground as well, winning by submission if need be as well. So obviously got that submission win against Bryce Mitchell as well. So and Bryce Mitchell himself is a very respectable grappler. That's his strong suit, and I don't see any way Tapuria loses this. I'm absolutely certain Tapuria wins against Gaethje. So Mule Floyd seems to have been rewarded by the MMA gods with probably the most certain fighter on this card. Okay, so we move on now to Piggy Bank. Let's see who Piggy Bank is going to be matched with. Derek Lewis for Piggy Bank. So finally, a different fighter I can talk about. One of the ones that hasn't come up yet. Uh, Derek Lewis there for Piggy Bank. We have so many people on his opponent Josh Hokett. Um, at least five or six, but now we've actually got someone for Derek Lewis. Admittedly, this comes with the caveat that it's on the side of the guy I think is going to get knocked out in the first round. But so in terms of for Piggy Bank, this is bad news. But um, yeah, probably I'd say the only fighter that has less of a chance is Michael Chandler. But on the card that has less of a chance would be Michael Chandler. But Derek Lewis, though, he's uh, coming off a knockout loss against Waldo Cortez Acosta. But in recent times has had knockout wins against Alison Teixeira and Rodrigo Nascimento. So he's still got that power, and they say power is the last thing to go. So as I said earlier, he's the epitome of having a puncher's chance. And um, maybe given his absolute wealth of experience difference, I'll just repeat it again, 29 wins, 13 losses in his MMA career. Now, that's 20 wins, 11 losses in the UFC alone, compared to Josh Hokett's 9-0 in MMA and 3-0 in the UFC. Um, there have got to be tricks that Lewis knows that Hokett obviously doesn't. I don't think there's anything Hokett is going to be able to throw at Lewis besides well, obviously the sheer power and speed, but of being a younger fighter. But who knows? Maybe Lewis can sort of dig out some old school tricks and find a way to victory here um, against his younger, less experienced opponent. But and the funny thing is, I mentioned a story earlier about Lewis being on the cards. It's pretty much at Donald Trump's request. Remember, Dana White was saying in an interview that because Donald Trump regularly attends UFC events, and apparently is one of the ones where Derek Lewis was fighting on, and apparently Trump leaned over to White and basically said, "How comes Derek Lewis isn't on the card?" And Dana basically said, "Oh, okay, well, give me a second." Sort of went out, made a phone call to Lewis or Lewis's agent, I can't remember, or Lewis's manager, I can't remember who, and basically said, "Can we? Do you want to fight on the White House cards?" They said yes, and here he is. So it's an amusing story that, if it's true, of course, but because it came from Dana White's own mouth, so we know it's true. Pause for comedic effect there, because he never tells any lies as an attempt at sarcasm for any Americans that might not grasp it. Um, but anyway, it's back to the fight itself. This is the sort of fight that's made for Josh Hokit, and I just can't shake the feeling that it's like you can go out there and beat Curtis Blades, you can go out there and beat Derek Lewis. So I think Piggy Bank is going to struggle with this one a bit. But if Derek Lewis does win, a lot of people are going out. A lot of people that were drawn with Josh Hokit are going to be going out. Um, so yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this one plays out. Rigno is next to see who the wheel has got in store for him. Let's see who. Uh, let's see what the wheel throws up for Rigno. It's Alex Pereira for Rigno there. It's Alex Pereira. So another one in that fight between Alex Pereira and Cyril Gahn. One of the more evenly spread out fights, I think, so far, besides maybe the Superior Gaethje fight. No idea what will serve as the unofficial Lucky Bastard Game main event for this one, but yeah, as I've mentioned, we're all very familiar with Pereira. Even the most casual of fans know the name, know that lethal left hook, know the charmer. One of the most marketable fighters in the sport right now. And obviously two weight division champion, looking to make it three weight division champion, depending how seriously you count interim titles, but wins this and it lines him up for a shot at the actual goals. So yeah, he's earned that status as one of the best of our generation, arguably one of the best of all time. And for me, the big question is, can Cyril Gahn nullify that threat? I would say Cyril Gahn is more well-rounded. I would admit Cyril Gahn's wrestling and grappling is better than Pereira's, for my money. But having said that, I still don't think that's going to be too much of a problem for Pereira to handle. I think he'll be able to handle that and get the shot off, get the wins, and end the fight later on in the fourth round, I'd say. But even if it does go the distance, I still think Pereira wins on the scorecards as well. So that's a good pick there for Rigno. Okay, so we move on to our reigning defending Tapology Lucky Bastard Game champion, Shat. Congratulations on winning the 37th edition. And good luck on your defense. Let's see if you can make it um two in a row and four overall. Uh, Funny enough, Piggy Bank and Shat are tied for the most wins at three each. Obviously, the wheel has one more, but we're not counting that because A, it's the wheel, and B, the wheel is statistically more likely to win these things, given it's always in the final round. Uh, but of the real users, Shat and Piggy Bank are currently tied on three wins overall. So let's see if Shat gets a bit better luck and see if Shaq can win it for a second time in a row, defeat the wheel for a second time in a row. And obviously, the wheel doesn't want him to because he's given him Cyril Gahn. Uh, Cyril Gahn for Shat. And as I've just been saying, I suppose I suppose I better give Gahn the benefit of the doubt here. I would say obviously his grappling, as I mentioned, is better than Pereira's. Maybe he can use that to cause him problems. I don't think he can, but that's his best shot. Um, but I think Garn's lucky to be in this fight in the first place. Um, I say in the no contest against Aspinall, I'd say he lost against Volkov before that, which, and to be fair, okay, about 3 years earlier, he did, Garn did beat Volkov decisively with no argument. So I suppose maybe you can rule that argument out as well. But other than Volkov, you probably have to say his best win is Sergey Spivak, and that doesn't bode well when you're up against Alex Pereira. Um, no disrespect to Spivak, solid fighter, but just not at this level, this sort of heavyweight title level. But the only interesting thing to know about Cyril Gane is he's never been knocked out. Never been knocked out in his career. Maybe Alex Pereira will be the first, and truthfully, I still expect Pereira to change that stat come Sunday night. But not a great pick, if I'm being honest, for our defending champion. Okay, so we'll move on to CN6, and let's see what the wheels got in store for CN6. Uh, Main eventer, or one of the main eventers, Ilya Taporia, one of the best fighters of the current generation, without question. Certainly, for my money, pound for pound, best in the world right now. Um, so Ilya Taporia for CN6, again, he's come up quite a lot actually. Um, so we'll have quite a few people going through because of him, I'll say. And CN6, another one of those to add to that list. Um, it's just absolutely incredible, really, the way he's been blasting through people. We haven't seen anything like that since McGregor's featherweight run, and uh, yeah, like I say, this is truly once in a generation stuff. And obviously, I just hope that Tapura actually makes good on his potential, and actually does stay active, rack up the defenses, because if so, he could potentially leave a legacy that wouldn't be matched for a long time. So um, I can see this just being another massive name in what could be, come the end of his career, an absolutely stacked resume of fighters. So I think CN6 got a very good chance getting through. Okay, so it's me next, Steve Terry. Let's see who I get drawn with. And if I get drawn with Cyril Gane, I might actually just end the video right here and throw my laptop out the fucking window. So anyone but Cyril Gane. Okay, yeah. Derek Lewis, I'll take that. I don't think he's got a chance, but at least I actually like him, and I will be rooting for him to get the win because he's fan favourite, very entertaining style. So yeah, I'll take that. Derek Lewis for me, even if it doesn't give me the best chance of getting through. That's So yeah, me, Stephen Terry with or Steve Terry or whatever you want to call me. I've been called a lot worse than that before with Derek Lewis. Um, Obviously, my opinion remains unchanged. I'm expecting Josh Hoker to win, but it's still and especially just given the form he's in, because Hoker's just on red hot form. But maybe I've got that renewed hope now that Lewis will be able to pull out one of those old school tricks and sort of get the win that way through a bit of yeah, just throughout experience, just through sheer experience difference, really, because the difference between the fights is the number of fights they've had is huge. Um, Absolutely incredible, really. But thinking about it, and the fact that he's still going, um, and still putting on entertaining fights, he's undoubtedly a legend of MMA, no question about it. But I just don't think I've got a very good chance of getting through. But at least it wasn't Cyril Garn. That's all I'm grateful for. So we move on now to the Dirty UFC man. Let's see who the Dirty UFC man is going to be matched with. And the Dirty UFC man gets Bo Nickel. That's Bo Nickel for the Dirty UFC man. And again, Bo Nickel should be a heavy favourite to win against Carl Dorcas, who I don't think has come up yet, actually. I don't think Carl Dorcas has been. Um, uh, oh, excuse me. Um, I think Carl Dorcas is and Steve Garcia are the only ones left that haven't been assigned to someone with yet. But Nico, as I said, should be another knockout win in my opinion. In many ways, Dorcas is a similar fighter, as I've said, to Vieira, who Nickel beat last time. Very much submission specialist to and Vieira didn't really seem to pose too much of a problem. I would rate Dorcas slightly higher than Vieira right now. To be fair, so it's a slight challenge, uh, a slight increase in challenge for that style of fighter, I suppose. But it's still someone I'm expecting Bo Nickel to beat handedly. Um, Especially when you've other fighters like Paul Craig, for instance, he was a very good grappler, very good wrestler and submission artist, and handled him quite comfortably. Yes, he gave him a tough fight, but went the distance, got the win. So yeah, I think Bo Nickel's almost certain to win this. So the Dirty UFC man's got a great chance here. The matchmaker is next. Let's see who the matchmaker is going to be given by the wheel. Diego Lopez for the matchmaker. So Diego Lopez is what the wheels decided to assign the matchmaker with, and obviously in the opening fight on the card against Steve Garcia, and this is probably the closest in my opinion because it's Lopez who's um, right now beating everyone not called Volkanovski. He's proven to be a very well-rounded, versatile MMA fighter, very modern style, I suppose, in the sense that you can tell that they've been training everything pretty much right from the get-go. A lot of the older fighters have a base style, and that seems to be less so the case with younger fighters like Lopez. It seems they've been sort of doing everything in almost equal measure, and it shows. He's comfortable going. He's comfortable on the ground. He's comfortable in a striking fight. There's no really obvious glaring weaknesses other than that sometimes, obviously, um, when he's been forced to go the distance, he's been on the wrong end of those scorecards. But that's more to do with the quality of his opponents rather than any fault of his own. Um, so yeah, the only risk here though is of course Steve Garcia has got he can end anyone's lives. Um, because he's got that knockout power. He could put him in with the featherweight champion 10 times. I'll say at least once he wins just by sheer fluke knockout. and very much a puncher's chance. And the thing is, though, is in terms of skill level, I wouldn't even say there's too much difference between it. I'd put Garcia slightly below Lopez in terms of where they're at in their careers, but there's not much of a difference. Um, and it's enough that that power can arguably bridge that gap. This is it's a close fight, but I do still fancy Lopez to win this one, a second round submission, because that seems to be the obvious weak point, I would say, in Garcia, even though he's shown that he's comfortable on the ground himself, that he can fight defensively against grapplers. It's I just feel like Lopez's grappling might be a bit too strong for him, or at the very least, that's going to be Lopez's path of least resistance to victory in this one. Because the longer he's standing, the longer he's facing the risk of potentially getting knocked out. Uh, but the matchmaker, I think, should be going through with Diego Lopez. Okay, the MMA historian next up. Let's see who the MMA historian is going to be rooting for on Sunday. Justin Gaethje in the main event, along with Ilya Taporia. I think the MMA historian is going to be needing a bit of luck here. Um, THJE. Let's see if I spelled it right. I didn't need to copy and paste that one. I think I've spelled that right first time. Incredible. Um, but yeah, the MMA historian Justin Gaethje, and as I said, you can't really find any better opponents at the moment for Topuria besides Tarsukian, but Tarsukian's doing everything but fight in the UFC, let's be honest. So he's out doing all sorts of influencer shit. He's done quite a lot of wrestling in the meantime as well. Just shame he can't stick with the UFC. But while he can't compete for the belt, may as well give Gaethje the shot. And Gaethje's always dangerous, of course. Always got that knockout power. You can never ever rule that out. But if we're saying that his striking is his main threat, that same is true for Tapuria and then some. So I think the MMA historian is going to need quite a lot of luck to get through with Justin Gaethje here. Okay, so we move on to Tosh. Let's see who the wheel has planned for Tosh. And there's still two fighters, I think, by my count, that haven't come up yet. Will they go unselected the whole game? Derek Lewis with Tosh there, or Tosh with Derek Lewis, whichever way around you want it. But Derek Lewis there. And again, maybe he's got the wise old veteran's chance. That's probably his best route to victory against Hokit. I'm still expecting Hokit to get through and win by first round knockout because uh, Hokit's going to put the pressure on Lewis, and it's been shown in the past Lewis has sort of crumpled under pressure. If fighters come right at him right from the opening bell, um, it it can be hard for him sort of to deal with that. And as such, there have been fighters that have got some fairly quick finishes over Derek Lewis as a result. And I don't see any reason why Hokit can't do the same sort of thing to Lewis himself. So um, obviously, I'm hoping Lewis wins because fan favorite, very entertaining fighter, and the UFC need more fighters like Lewis on their roster. That's for sure. Um, but one thing's for sure that I think Tosh will need a lot of luck, as will myself and everyone else who has been drawn with Derek Lewis in this round. Okay, Trail is next. Let's see who Trail is going to be matched with. And Trail gets Bo Nickel. It's Bo Nickel for trail there, and I feel like Bo Nickel's come up quite a lot of times as well, actually. And yeah, not a hell of a lot more I can add to that other than that's against Carl Dorcas. I suppose I may as well talk about Carl Dorcas because it looks like he's not going to get drawn at this rate. So, obviously we all know about Bo Nickel by now, but Dorcas, as mentioned, uh, his submission artist. Um, Definitely got more experience going for him than Bo Nickel. 17 wins, 4 losses compared to Bo Nickel's 8-1 record. 4-4 in the UFC with no draws, one no contest, but and not a huge difference in age. Dorcas 33, Nickel 30, and obviously Dorcas on a 4-fight win streak at the minute. Obviously, his UFC run has been over the course of 2 different stints in the promotion. And since he's been back, he's submitted Gerald Mercheret in 50 seconds in his last fight and knocked out Mikel Pereira. Um, so not a bad return to the promotion. In his absence, since the first time we saw him in the promotion, he's become the champion of CFFC Cage Fury Fighting Championship, which is a very respectable regional promotion, a very high level regional promotion in the United States. So being a champion there isn't anything to be sniffed at, and certainly worthy of getting your place back in the UFC, in my opinion. Um, but is that enough against sort of generational talent of Bo Nickel or generational wrestling talent, I might add? Still waiting to see how if his MMA career materializes. But if we're saying Bo Nickel's arguably one of the best wrestlers of all time, then or in America, or high school, college wrestler, but again, I don't quite understand the dynamics of all of that. Um, as to why that's so big, but I'm sure there's probably plenty of Americans be able to correct me on that. But yeah, basically, I'm still expecting Bo Nickel to be a heavy favourite here. He should still be able to handle Dorcas in a similar fashion to the way he handled Vieira in the last one. Similar type of fighter. So even if I suppose maybe that's selling Dorcas a little short, to be honest, because I mean Vieira is very much one-dimensional in terms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, whereas Dorcas leans a lot on the grappling, but does have he does have other parts to his game as well. He's more of an MMA fighter than Vieira is, but in that sense. But I'm still I still can't shake the feeling Bo Nickel's just gonna um put on another dominant performance. Maybe Dorcas can take a round or two or survive a round or two anyway against Bo Nickel, but I think that might be as far as his success goes. So, but Trail's not going to mind that assessment if that means he gets through. Okay, so we're on to Trig now. Um, Again, I'll just give a shout out to Trig for running the Tapology Wagering League. If you ever want to sort of test your betting knowledge in hypothetical bets with um no actual money at stake. I'm not promoting real gambling here. It's just a game you start with 50,000 virtual dollars and you bet on MMA. It's not just the UFC, you can do it on MMA in general as well. Um and although you do need to bet on the UFC, otherwise you get a small fine. But and again, I think that's a game you can hop in at any time, even if you do start with a slightly lower purse, depending how late you join the game. But well worth getting well worth joining in if you want to see how good your hypothetical betting is without the risk of losing any actual capital. Um, so let's see if Tree can be a bit lucky, a bit get a bit of luck with the wheel. Yet another one for the Josh Hokit pile. Um, it's a trig with Josh Hokit. And again, not much I can really add to that other than that it's just a case of can Lewis use his superior experience to try and cause an upset here? But I think Hokit's going to be too young, too fresh, just too fast for him, and shown to be a very skilled heavyweight in that fight against Curtis Blades. That was a very impressive performance. And if that version of Hokit turns up against Lewis, which I don't see why it shouldn't, seem we're only about a couple of months removed from it, I think this could be a very short fight, and I think Hokit should be winning this. So good news for Trick there. Okay, so Trostradamus, the return of the legendary alliance between Troz and Costradamus. Um, Great to see them back again. So bringing it back together for this very American centric cards. I suppose two Americans, aren't they? Uh, the one thing I suppose it is good, I suppose, is this card is sort of bringing out a bit of American spirit into the game. We love to see that. It's adds a bit of needle to it, especially given the inventor of the game himself is British, and as such, the wheel is also a British invention. That's a nice bit of needle to it. But seriously, though, it is wonderful to see you two back together again, and hopefully, this incarnation of Trostradamus will be much luckier than the previous ones, because Trostradamus Volume 1 and 2 didn't really go that well, if I'm being completely honest. So hopefully, third time lucky for the Alliance. Yep, and it's good. It's Diego Lopez. That's a good fighter to get. So Diego Lopez for Trostradamus into opening the cards against Steve Garcia, who still hasn't been drawn with anyone. I don't think. I don't think any. I could be wrong, but I don't think anyone's been drawn with Garcia yet. If my memory serves me right. Same with Dorcas. I don't think anyone's been drawn with Kyle Dorcas yet. Um, but as I said, Lopez is tearing up at featherweight, and it's inevitable he's going to be a featherweight champion. I can see that happening at some point in the future. And again, he's going to be a sort of fighter that I can see the UFC pushing, wanting to be a champion at some point. So I can see that in the future once Volkanovski retires. Um, and he's already extremely experienced, 27 wins, 8 losses. So he's already so lack of experience isn't an issue. More experience than his opponent Garcia, for instance, 19-5. Um, even if Garcia has actually had more UFC fights, 8-2 in the UFC compared to Lopez's 6-3, but and at 31 years old, Lopez still got time on his side in it to really build a good career. Um, which is kind of weird because I always feel like he's already had most of his career, 27 and 8. He's already 35 fights into his career so far, which is crazy to think about. Um, Especially given how new to the UFC scene he is, spent so much of his time in the regionals, but probably explained, which obviously goes a long way to explaining why he's been so dominant at featherweights and how he's been able to beat everyone not named Volkanovski. But Trostradamus, this is a brilliant pick. Okay, there's probably heavier favourites, but compared to your previous luck, this is about as good as you could really have hoped for. So, a good pick there for Trostradamus. Okay, so we move on now to our third and final alliance. Uber Industry, the German alliance, still going strong, still our longest serving alliance at this point. Of course, between Ubermatch and Schwer Industry. So best of luck to you two, and no German fighters on the card, unfortunately. But let's see who we can get you anyway. Right on the edge there, but it's another one for the Josh Hokett pile. So oh dear, I don't think anyone's had as many people on their back as Josh Hokett has. Uh, so yeah, not a lot I can say to Zaldin. I'm expecting his recent form to continue. He's still still got that momentum behind him. Still very active, which is good to see for a well for any fighter. But if you want to climb the ranks, stay active, and that's what Hokett's doing. And I can see him taking that momentum through, and with a win against Derek Lewis. But other than that, it's very little else I can add to that. So good pick there for Uber Industry. If Josh Hokey does lose, that wipes out probably about half the field. Okay, so we move on to our penultimate one. Vasquez 88. Again, no Spaniards on the card, unfortunately. Oh, actually, no, I suppose, well, it depends if you count Tapurio Spanish. I suppose you can. Um, I'm not quite sure. I'm not whether he's considered to be more Spanish or more Georgian, but still, we've got 1 in 14 chance of getting drawn with him anyway. But Vasquez 88 gets drawn with Bo Nickel. So again, quite a lot have gone on Bo Nickel actually. Um, Bo Nickel there, who I'm expecting to plough through against Carl Dorcas, in a similar vein to how he went through Rodolfo Vieira. So first round knockout for Bo Nickel there is my prediction. As I say, he came back from that loss against Renier de Ridder very well, and uh, again another fighter, very bright future ahead of him, and this should be another step on that road um, of a great career. But Vasquez 88, I can very much see going through with Bo Nickel. Uh, and I still don't think anyone's got his opponent Kyle Dorcas yet, which means one person left. It means that even if we've got ex-con Chris left, he's the last one. Off the top of my head, I don't think anyone's been drawn with Kyle Dorcas or Steve Garcia, which means there will be at least one of them that isn't drawn with anyone, which I didn't think was going to happen. I thought that every fighter would have at least one person on, but the wheel decides to give everyone hope kit, so that's how it's transpired. But anyway, finally, XCon Chris, and of course, giving everyone else's games a shout out, I've got to give XCon Chris's Survivor game a shout out as well. Another one, a fresh one starting this week. Make sure you get in on that because similar to this game, once once it starts, if you're not all in from the beginning of it, you'll have to wait until the new game starts. You need to be in on it from the first round, otherwise it's not fair on everyone else. And it's quite simple. There's 3 fights selected. Um, I think this week's are the Pereira Gain fights, Lopez Garcia fight, and off the top of my head, I think what's the other one? I'm not sure what the third one is off the top of my head, but um, pick 3 fights. You pick your 3 fighters from them. Obviously, the first one is the main one, and basically all the ones that are right go through, all the ones that are wrong go out. Sort of similar to this game. If this is in the sense, but it actually requires skill to win the Survivor game because you're actually making the choices yourself between the fights selected. Whereas this is just dumb blind luck. Um, you do need a bit of skill to win the Survivor game, and as a 3-time champion of the Survivor game myself, I can tell you it's not easy to win it. Only the best can call themselves three-time Survivor Game champions. But anyway, best of luck to XCon Chris, and thanks for your efforts in running the Survivor Game. Let's see who won final time of this extraordinary card. Let's see who is the wheel going to give us. Alex Pereira for XCon Chris. So Alex Pereira there with XCon Chris, and I'm hoping XCon Chris goes through here because I want nothing more than see Cyril Garner get knocked out by Alex Pereira. Very satisfying left hook would do the job, and it's a fight I'm expecting to. I'm expecting to go. Oh well, quite a long way actually. I'm expecting to go into the third or fourth round. I predicted the fourth round, and it's a fight I reckon, in terms of real life, could turn out being the real main event. Could be end up being the fight on the card, the best fight on the cards. When all is said and done, with most of the other fights finishing fairly early, this one could have a bit more meat on the bone. But Alex Pereira should be getting through. No troubles at all, I'd have thought. So, yeah, excellent, Chris. I'm expecting to see you in the second round. Okay, so that concludes this extraordinary round. Um, just give me a second to catch my breath, and we'll run through those names one more time. I'll just stretch my legs a little bit first. Got pins and needles in my feet from where I've been squatted down. But anyway, 42 entrances, 14 different fighters, and this is the mess we have ended up with. So I'll just run through these names one more time. I'm not going to attempt to work out who's been drawn with who, or who's been drawn against who, what the permutations for all of this are, because that would take forever. But here are the results of the first round draw for the 38th edition of the Tapology Lucky Bastard game. Andrew Loves Christ with Michael Chandler. A La Master with Justin Gaethje. Baron Van Rattus with Justin Gaethje. Bellatrix with Eamon Zahabi. Boom Shakalaka with Bo Nickel. Calfoth with Sean O'Malley. Canega Ruiz with Mauricio Ruffi. C. Collins 44 with Bo Nickel. Cheeseball with Alex Pereira. Chimpsmack with Josh Hokett. D1 D4K10 with Diego Lopez. Damien Handel 420 with Josh Hokett. Dr. Maxis 2 with Alex Pereira. El Guapo with Eamon Zahabi. Foghorn Sam with Josh Hokett. Geneva 65 with Ilya Tapuria. Grahamman with Josh Hokett. Great with Ilya Tapuria. It's Your Boy SB with Josh Hokett. Jack Soto with Diego Lopez. Jordan and Pippin with Cyril Garn. JP DeChamp 27 with Eamon Zahabi. KK Kombu with Bo Nickel. Knife Rusty with Justin Gaethje. Cushy Cake with Eamon Zahabi. Love Song with Cyril Garn. Mule Floyd with Ilya Tapuria. Piggy Bank with Derek Lewis. Rigno with Alex Pereira. Our reigning defending Tapology Lucky Bastard Game champion Shat with Cyril Garn. Cian 6 with Ilya Tapuria. Me, Steve Terry with Derek Lewis. The Dirty UFC Man with Bo Nickel. The Matchmaker with Diego Lopez. The MMA Historian with Justin Gaethje. Tosh with Derek Lewis. Trail with Bo Nickel. Trig with Josh Hokett. Trostradamus with Diego Lopez. Uber Industry with Josh Hokett. Vazk 88 with Bo Nickel. And XCon Chris with Alex Pereira. So that concludes the first round draw, and the main takeaways from that, a ton of people on Josh Hokett, and surprisingly, nobody, if I've gone through it right, if I've added it up right, nobody with Kyle Dorcas or Steve Garcia. which is a surprise. I thought every fighter would have at least one person with them. But not those two. That's just the way the wheel goes. But real mixed bag there. Um, real mixed bags. It's a very unpredictable card. That so. All that leaves me to say, best of luck to everyone in this game. Um, enjoy the mayhem that unfolds on Sunday nights. Best of luck with your picks on Tapology. I will also mention actually this week, Tapology, they're offering a uh hang on, I'll have to go back onto the Tapology page to refresh my memory. It's the UFC 6 game. No use to me because I mean I've most advanced console I've got is the PS4, which even UFC 5 isn't on, but make picks on Tapology this week. And if you're ones with the top 20 scoring in terms of the points, almost accurate picks using the Tapology's uh, scoring system, then you'll get a top 10 eligible contestants will get a code for the UFC 6 game. So you can start knocking each other senseless in the virtual world if you're one of the top 20 pickers on the site. Um, are you one of the best pickers on the sites? That's test your metal, and you might end up with a new game for your console or your whatever you do. But anyway, so best of luck to anyone making picks because you could actually win something this time. Uh, good luck to anyone who's got bets on this cards, and just be lucky in life in general. But uh, enjoy the mayhem that unfolds on Sunday night, and until next time, so long for now.